Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Not Your Mama's Murder, the podcast where each week we discuss a different true crime case. I'm Elisa Birdhill, and this week we are going to be talking about the disappearance of Brittanee Drexel. Now, of course, I could not spend 3 weeks traveling and then not do a case about traveling. So, I have had Brittany's case worked up ready to go for a long time. I've actually recorded it a couple of different times and it just didn't feel right to put it out then. So I decided to just scrap those recordings, sit down, re-record it today, and hopefully this one will feel like the right time to put it out for you guys. This one is about the beach, and of course my trip was not, well, it was not technically to the beach. We did go to the beach, but not an ocean beach. We went to the beaches of some of the Great Lakes up in Michigan. But imagine for me what spring break at Myrtle Beach in 2009 might look like for a bunch of teenagers. No adults. Life wasn't really lived on camera the way it is now. It should be the very best time, except it wasn't for 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel. Brittanee was a junior in high school in Rochester, New York. She was described as having a big personality, very social and loyal, as well as energetic. Brittanee, like many teenagers who feel like they are already basically adults, want to be treated like the adults they think they are. So Brittanee planned a trip to Myrtle Beach with her friends to spend spring break. She was very excited, but it was all for nothing, because her mother, Dawn, said no. South Carolina was too far away, Brittanee was too young, Dawn didn't know Brittanee's friends that she planned to travel with, and honestly, she just had a feeling that it was a bad idea. As sort of a consolation prize, Dawn did tell Brittanee that she could go and stay a couple nights with a friend locally. So Brittanee did that. Or so her mother thought. What she actually did was take the trip to Myrtle Beach anyway. Now, once they had been in Myrtle Beach for a couple of days, Brittanee called her mom and told her that she was at the beach. But Dawn just assumed that Brittanee meant the beach of Lake Ontario, not South Carolina. So, like me, she thought she was just at one of the Great Lakes. Just for reference, Myrtle Beach is 817 miles from Rochester, or about a 13-hour drive. That's very far away for a group of teenagers to be without any supervision, in my personal opinion. As it is often the case when you travel with people that you aren't used to sharing small spaces or extended amounts of time with, tensions began to rise between the girls on the trip. Apparently, Brittanee was younger than a lot of the girls, and by day 2 of the trip, Brittanee felt very isolated. Now, this will come into play later, but initially it just came across as nothing more than harmless teenage drama. Brittanee, she was connected with a longtime friend who also happened to be traveling to Myrtle Beach, and his hotel was only about 1.5 miles away. On the night of April 25th, 2009, Brittanee left the hotel she was staying at and started walking that 1.5 miles to that friend's hotel. Reports say that just after she first left, she returned because she had borrowed clothes from one of the other girls on the trip, and that girl had asked for her clothes to be returned. Then Brittanee left again. By this point, it is around 8:15, and Brittanee can be seen on surveillance footage entering the hotel lobby, then leaving around 8:45. During this time, Brittanee is texting her boyfriend, John, who knew she was in Myrtle Beach, but he couldn't make the trip due to not being able to get the time off of work. 8:45 is the last time Brittanee is seen, and by 9:15, her phone is completely inactive. No calls, no texts, and no location pings. When John hadn't heard from Brittanee in a while, he started reaching out to some of the people that she had traveled with. He was asking where she was, and unfortunately, no one knew. The friends also tried to reach her, but they didn't have any success either. So John called Dawn. In that moment, Dawn learned not only that Brittanee had gone to Myrtle Beach, but that she was missing from Myrtle Beach. She immediately contacted the police in Rochester in hopes that they would communicate with the authorities in South Carolina. She and Brittany's stepfather, Chad, got into the car and headed straight for Myrtle Beach. I'm so sorry. I'm going to get a drink. And then I just have to say, I think it's amazing that John took action so quickly. As soon as he hadn't heard from Brittany, he must have felt something was off, and he did the mature, responsible thing by letting her mother know. I think that takes a lot of bravery, because had everything been okay and Brittany's phone just died or whatever, she could have been very mad at him for contacting her mom and telling her what Brittany had done. So I commend him a lot for doing that. On the morning of April 26th, a search for Brittany was started. That search would last for 11 days. The police found the case suspicious from the very beginning, and the FBI quickly joined the investigation. This is how we know that she was texting her boyfriend and where she was walking. The FBI, of course, pinged her location, searched her phone data information, as her phone was never found, and pulled CCTV footage showing Brittany walking back and forth between the hotels. In an ideal world, we would have seen her be taken or get into a car, but that didn't happen. Even though the FBI continued the investigation, the search for Brittany quickly went cold as spring breakers returned home from vacation. Brittany's mother understandably struggled with her daughter's disappearance, eventually relocating to Myrtle Beach permanently to be close to the last place her daughter was seen, as well as stay in the loop of the investigation. She would also go on to be a guest on Dr. Phil, which we now know is a very problematic and exploitive show. If you haven't seen the documentary about that, I recommend watching it. But she went on Dr. Phil a couple of times to keep Brittany's name in the media and also to talk about her theories. One of which was accusing the guy who was the last known person to talk to Brittany face to face. He was the friend who happened to be in Myrtle Beach for spring break, but was from the same hometown, which Brittany's mom found suspicious. His name was Peter Brozowitz, and he denied any claim of being involved. He and Brittany's mother, Dawn, actually went toe-to-toe a couple of times on the Dr. Phil show. Peter said he talked to the police and told them it was nothing more than a coincidence that they were both in the same area, and he knew nothing about her disappearance. He said he was cleared, though the police maintained they hadn't ruled out anyone. On the 5-year anniversary of Brittany's disappearance, Dawn's theory seemed to pivot away from Peter, and she told media outlets that she felt Brittany was baited to Myrtle Beach by a promise of a modeling gig, and that she was ultimately trafficked, though police found nothing to back up these claims. In 2016, the FBI released a statement stating that they believed Brittany was no longer alive and that she was likely abducted and killed right after in the area where her phone stopped pinging. They offered a $25,000 reward for information on the case, which we know is almost never a good move. It seems like it would be helpful, but more often than not, it just produces problems, false leads that end up just wasting time, which is the case with suspect number 1, Timothy Taylor. Timothy was serving time for unrelated charges, and while he was serving time, another inmate who was serving 25 years for manslaughter came forward and claimed the following story. He said that he visited a stash house to make a drug payment to Timothy's father, and while at the house, he witnessed Timothy and others sexually assaulting Brittany. He stated that while in the backyard talking to Timothy's father, that Brittany ran out of the door, being chased by Timothy, who quickly recaptured her, pistol whipped her, and then dragged her back into the house. He claims to have then heard 2 gunshots, which he assumed were shot to kill Brittany, because he then witnessed a wrapped body being removed from the house and tossed into a nearby alligator pond. totally believable, right? And to be clear, I'm not saying that this couldn't have happened. I know things like this does happen. It's just the idea that it happened at the exact moment that he was there to see the entire incident and to know how it ended, and that he didn't try to say anything after it happened or try to lever it for lesser time at the time of his arrest. But he waited until there was a reward, and the police presented a theory themselves. So, hopefully you understand why I'm being skeptical. I should mention that he later changed the details of this story. Eventually, he said that he had seen her as many as 4 times and that she was being sexually assaulted by at least 12 different men during those sightings. Now, I'm going to pause here and tell you what I always thought happened to Brittanee. And listen, this is completely just my theory. I have a theory on basically every case. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes I never will have the opportunity to find out. I was very wrong on this one, and I'm kind of glad. My theory was always that things escalated with her and the girls that she was traveling with, and that they harmed her or pushed her into water that she couldn't get out of. They found a way to make it so that she couldn't go home. It would not be unheard of. I mean, we have the entire Mean Girl Murders show on Hulu. We have the case of Skylar Neese and the Slender Man killings. Teenage girls can be mean and vicious and a lot. And so I always found it suspicious that the police didn't look more into them. But I think that would have looked bad for tourism for Myrtle Beach. So that was my theory, always, from the time I learned about this case. But in May of 2022, a 61-year-old registered sex offender named Raymond Moody turned himself in to the police on an obstruction of justice charge. Raymond had been considered a suspect in Brittanee's case for over 10 years. So, they took this opportunity of him turning himself in on other charges to question him about it. Raymond admitted to the crime and even told officers the location of Brittanee's remains. On May 11th, 2002, Brittanee's remains were found buried about 4 feet deep in the woods off of a gated private area. Through DNA, they were confirmed to be that of Brittanee Drexel. Raymond was charged with criminal sexual misconduct, kidnapping, and murder. On April 26th of 2009, he kidnapped, strangled, raped, and murdered Brittanee before burying her body. His girlfriend, April, was also arrested and charged with lying to the FBI about her involvement in the case. April is the one who lured Brittanee into the car and the one who took her phone and disposed of it. She then spent 13 years lying to authorities when being questioned about Brittanee. Both Raymond and April pleaded guilty to their charges. April was sentenced to 18 years in prison in February of 2025, and Raymond was sentenced to life with an added 2 consecutive 30-year sentences. So he will absolutely die in prison, as he deserves. Brittanee's family filed and won a $700 million wrongful death suit against Raymond Moody. And that is the case of Brittanee Drexel. It started out as a disappearance, and for a long time was a disappearance, and then eventually we got it closed. As I said, I always thought the people she was traveling with were going to ultimately be the ones that it came out were responsible for her disappearance. I was shocked when the information of Raymond Moody came out. To be completely honest with you, I didn't believe it originally. I thought they were just trying to stick this on some old sex offender so they could officially close the case and be done with it. It wasn't until he told them where her remains could be found, and they were actually there, and they were confirmed to be that of Brittanee, that I believed it. Obviously, it's hard to deny cold, hard physical evidence. I'm thankful for her family, Dawn and her stepdad, Chad, and I hope that they feel the closure. I think it says something about a mother's love that she never went back home to Rochester. You know, she moved to Myrtle Beach, and that's where she spent her time waiting for her daughter to be found. And even though that took a long time, that's exactly where she stayed. So I hope that she is either A, happy now and is able to enjoy that area and have a love for it, or B, now that the case is closed and she has that justice, she can move to wherever she wants and enjoy the rest of her days. It's always a good day when we see an old case, a cold case, be solved. So, happy for Brittanee. I'm happy for her family. As always, I will put visuals up on social media because Brittanee was just so cute. A lot of the pictures of her, because it was in 2009, is just the epitome of 2009. You know, the snooky poof, the blue eyeshadow. She was adorable, and it's very unfortunate that her light was snuffed so soon in life. So, that is the case for today. We are going to see how Headline of the Week goes on Monday. I'm excited about that. And we will be back next week with another case. Have a good weekend. Bye.